I want to get into some Dave talk, man. Like, yo, Dave, you've been out in these streets, in these RPG streets, building a following, what I'm saying, writing. Yo, you've been a consistent writer since the day I met you. That's over. And I'm assuming that you was writing way before that, because there was a game you were developing when I met you. And that you had a book that was like thick as hell back then. So like do you ever remember what is the name of that first game system that you
Uh,
were developing?
so that lives in like forever development hell. I'm not sure if that will ever become anything, but that um, I had like this epiphany at a Dragon Con one year, tore down everything I've been working on for like a decade or 15 years, rebuilt it, and that's eventually what became Fractured Kingdom.
Right, right.
Uh, and then the engine behind Fractured Kingdom is what I used for Metahumans Rising. Um, but so Fractured Kingdom was like your dark conspiracy, dark future kind of stuff, um, and like everywhere you turn, there's someone watching you, and something deeper happening, and it grinds you down. How do you survive in this environment? Whereas Metahumans Rising is all about like pulling yourself above the challenge, right? Like going to greater heights.
Mm.
Um, I flipped like one mechanic, and it made like a world of difference between the two games.
Okay, so take us back. All right, so you have to treat us like we don't know nothing about nothing. So when you say you developed, all right, the first Fractured Kingdom, if you that means you developed a gameplay framework, and then there's a story that overlays it.
Yeah,
Is that-
with an RPG, you have like the core rules engine, right? Like this is like the mechanics of the game, how it functions. It's just like in a video game, except pen and paper. This is how I take an action, but you're not constrained to the kind of actions you can take in a video game. A video game, you can only have the actions that are programmed into it. In a
Mhm.
tabletop game, you can do whatever you want. You're just trying to develop the narrative or the story that everyone at the table is participating in.
Okay.
Um, and then the setting kind of hinges on that, right? So different games have different levels of integration between the two. Like some games are completely setting agnostic, whereas others are like so completely integrated into the system that you cannot separate the two.
Mm, got you. So when you did Fracture King, you released it. Then MetaHumans isn't like a sub story off of the main book. It is something completely different. It just uses the same rules
Yeah.
as Fracture King. Okay, got you. Got so all right. So what is the biggest difference between Fracture Kingdom and MetaHumans? And I think you might have already said it, but I'm asking again so that I can have a better understanding.
Well, one is like urban fantasy and dark conspiracy, and the other one puts on spandex.
Okay, I like that. There you go. So in the gaming world, and I'm glad I got both you and AB on, because I really wanted to have more of a RPG role playing, I would say tabletop role playing conversation. I will tell you, like, one of the things that has been the most annoying for me over the last year, since what I'm saying, AB came on and we've been having discussions about beginning into an RPG game. I am kind of like the avatar for the young urban kid that don't know nothing about none of this stuff. So like me trying to get an understanding has been so difficult. Like I bought the role playing game, I bought Cyberpunk Red, I bought the Jumpstart kit, and I've been like watching YouTube videos, but it is not easy. It is not something that you can just come into. You know what I mean? Because like I see stuff like Monopoly. It doesn't. It's nothing to kind of Monopoly makes sense and a simple. And I guess it's because it's simplistic. Same thing with certain other games. I kind of walk into it. I have an understanding. But with RPG, there's so much. I don't feel like they make it. I don't feel like any RPG, in my honest opinion, has ever been simple step by step. They walk you through it. A lot of it is you kind of have to know jargon. You kind of have to know a whole bunch of this and a whole bunch of that to kind of get the gist of what's going on. Is that done on purpose? Number one, and number two, am I just not educated enough to even be dealing with RPGs? And you could be honest. Hey man, I might need to go back.
Some games are better or worse at this topic of like bringing in new players, right? And there's also this like this idea of, well, you're never going to start cold. You're always going to start with someone else who's already in the hobby and they know how the games operate, right? And you build a kind of a familiarity with different rule systems. So like, let's say I started in the 80s with Marvel superheroes, like we were talking about earlier, right? I could easily, I could pivot to another game system, even though it's a different rule set, because I kind of know how RPGs work from playing this other game,
Gotcha.
right? And so there's kind of like this knowledge that rolls forward, and then when you join a group, someone's going like, "Hey, I'm going to hold your hand and carry you through this."
Gotcha.
Right? So like one of the things I did with both Fractured Kingdom and with Metahumans Rising is like I included an introductory adventure to kind of like, hey, this is the kind of the framework of a story that you might experience in this game. And then for Metahumans Rising, I took it a step further and said, hey, if you want a formula for writing a superhero story, this is kind of the ebb and flow of a superhero tale. And you can take these elements, mix them, and match them how you want for ease if you're running the game. And then in the rules section, I did like broader examples of like, hey, we're going to write these entire scenes instead of just being like, example is I roll these dice and then this outcome happens. So this is the narrative, and this is how your dice interpret that narrative, right? Or impact that narrative. But there's other games that do a better job than that. I mentioned Apocalypse World earlier. Like they put you kind of like in the driver's seat right from the beginning, because it's a much lighter rule set. So you can kind of really just jump in. You pick your playbook, which is kind of like your role in Cyberpunk Red. You decide what your playbook is going to be, and it tells you, hey, you're going to do these are the things that you're good at, right? And all the rules you need for your gameplay are on the character sheet, right? So it's really easy to jump in with.
Got you.
So for guys like myself, JS1, even Fame, that don't play these tabletop games, what would be some starter games that we could get started with to put us in that space, or even us to learn how to get into that space?
That's a good question.
A lot of people will just default to Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't agree with that. I would say, like, what are your interests in like stories? Like, what kind of narratives do you like to see? And then we can find a game around that, right? Okay. Because there's so many RPGs out there. The thing is, can you find someone who can run that game? Otherwise, you're going to have to, kind of generate your own group and learn that game along the way. So the lighter the rules tend to help, but that's not necessarily the case. Like, if I'm going in cold, you've never played a role-playing game before in your life, I might say, let's play a game of Dread, because the only thing you need to play Dread is a Jenga tower. Okay. And essentially that is like a horror RPG. Mm-hmm. And every time you do something where there's an element of danger, you pull a Jenga block, and there is only one outcome if that tower falls, right?
Gotcha.
So real easy to learn the rules. Don't mess up. Tell a horror story.
Gotcha.
Pretty much.
But yeah, definitely like find your interest and then gravitate towards the lighter end of that scale. I think was probably the best introduction.
Let me add to Dave's argument. Information here. How I go ahead and drive with my players is I give them pretty much the rule of three, and pretty much, of course, it's the rule of cool. What scenario? What setting you want to be in? Do you want to be in a fantasy setting? Do you want to be in a future setting? Do you want to be in modern times? Then we can go ahead and go from there. Okay, and then what's the other driving force? Do you like hardcore role playing, like you're gonna sit down, talk out a situation? Are you a person that likes to talk out situations, or are you a person you want to just get in, kick the door in, shoot everybody up in the room like John Wick? So that's how I lean. It's either you're going to be the talker, talking role playing, story rich, um, interactive game like that, or you're going to just go ahead and just, like some people call it, war gaming, and just get in, take care of the bad guys, and this is how you guys do it. It depends on your group and how you're going ahead and fill that niche.
That's something I really like about what you said there is, what do you like to experience, right? And I think that's at the core of like, how do you start? Like, find the game that meets those needs. And if you have someone like AB who's like, I'm familiar with all these different games, and I know how to run all these games, you can have this conversation of like, well, these are the things I like. Okay, well, let's play a game that caters to that.
Got you. So
and like D&D, I like, if you've seen my gaming group, I am pretty much fast and loose with the rules. Some people are completely what we call in the D&D table world, raw rules as written. I'm like this. It's a guidebook. It's not the gospel. I mean, if you do something that's completely unexpected and it's not game breaking or overpowering, let it go through. I mean, hey, if you go ahead and make this means to, do this, your friend is captured in this big castle here, and you go ahead and come up with this awesome heist idea distraction plan to go ahead and lure the guards out to go that way, while your crew with one crew and one other half of the table is going in to break your friend out. Then do it that way. Give me the story, and I provide you the entertainment and the encounters of what you guys might run into.
I watched, so at my job I was watching a couple guys that was playing a game. I think they called it Civilization or something like that. Game looked super simple, right? But as they were trying to explain it to me, it was like, yeah, I'm lost, and I just walked away. But it's games like that where it may look super simple, but to the average person, it's like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? So it's situations like that where the normal gamer is like, where do I start? You know what I mean? But I get it. I get where you guys are saying, think about what you're interested in, what you want to see, and what you want to see happen, and then maybe it'll lead you in that right direction to what game you want to play.
So if I can tie this back to something you had said earlier about enjoying like Death Race and Mad Max. There's a PBTA Powered by the Apocalypse game called Spirit of 77, which is like inspired by like 70s like action exploitation films. And like the core mechanic of it is, I roll 2 dice. Is it over 7? Then I succeeded. If it's over 10, I got a good success. Right? If it's under 7, well, then bad things happen. Right? And that's like, if you got that part down, you know how to play the game now. Right? And if you like films like Death Race 2000 or the old Mad Max and Road Warrior stuff, that might be like a good like entry point for you, right? Again, it's just like where do you want to begin?
Mm-hmm. All right, and that's where I'm gonna chime in. I was like, okay, these guys, they got it. So I believe y'all all hitting key points. When I played from various board games from 2005 to probably 2007. Heavy from rotating in different car shops, from Towson to Essex and Bel Air Road. It was always great game master, somebody who can easily walk you through everything, and a good group. I could walk in, see somebody playing, stay for about 5 minutes. If the group, they don't have to be great. They could be asking the game master. If the game master is explaining to them what it is that they need to do, I could then sit down at the table for the next set and perfectly fall right in. I could see what they're doing. I could already know, okay, if it's a fantasy game, all right, I want to be an elf. I want to be a rebel elf. Okay, I want to be a hunter. I can start creating my story in my head as I'm watching the way the conniving game master is and how the players are playing. I could fit into a modern war game. It just depends on the person who wants to play. Like you're saying, like you don't have to get what you want to do. You just gotta be able to soak it all in. If you could soak it in, if you would have stayed for about 5 to 10 minutes, pill, and just was watching the room, you would have got the game instantly. Gamers game. It's just easy for us to. It's like picking up most games and not having a tutorial, like most sandbox games. Conan drove me crazy for 2 days, and then it clicked. I got it. Okay, everything makes sense. Branches, stones. Repeat the process.
He said branches, stones.
Branches, stones.
Yo,
Repeat the process.
yeah, like I definitely feel you. All right, so before we move on, hey, so Dave, give me the perfect pitch on why people need to not only buy MetaHumans Rising, but why they need to get the OG Fractured Kingdom, man. Tell them, man, pitch it.
So here's the thing. MetaHumans Rising is inspired by like the creativity of comic books. We've created a framework where your character sheet is not the extent of what you can do; it's what you know you can do, and it's all about pushing yourself to go beyond that level, right? And how do you rise to the occasion? And we have quite a bit of support for it as JS1 is like scrolling through. You can see the different adventures that we've written that are available. And there's more on like the House Doc website, just web enhancement stuff like that. But these are the published adventures and the core books. Fractured Kingdom, like if you enjoy MetaHumans Rising, check out Fractured Kingdom, and it'll give you kind of the the where we came from versus where we are today. By the way, on the House Doc site, this is our webcomic. There's 2 issues. This is the last page of it, right? We did wrap it up this year, but if you want to have a quick spandex adventure, this is where to go.
Got you. All right.
There's also a podcast on here as well. So if you want to hear us playing the game when it was in beta testing, you could do that too.
Okay, wait a minute. Where do I go to get to the podcast? Let's see.
Actual plays.
Actual plays. That's actually a good name for a podcast. Actual plays. All right.
Like those are write-ups, but if you scroll down, you'll get to them. So there you go.
All right. Yeah, baby. All right. The goodness.
Those were all from our beta test era when we were still developing the game.
Got you. All right, man.
And before you say yes, I did take that picture from Thunder the Barbarian.
We weren't gonna snitch on you, bro. We was gonna let it ride.